Hello, everyone. Welcome to Barca News. My name is Moen. Welcome to the post-match live analysis where we analyze Barcelona matches. Today, we are reviewing the match between Celta Vigo and Barcelona, where Barcelona got a very important victory. 2-4 final score with a hat trick by Robert Lewandowski and a goal by Lamine Yamal. Now, I say this was a very important victory for two reasons. The number one reason is because, of course, Celta Vigo is a tough opponent. They're a tough opponent for several reasons. Number one reason is, or A, I guess I should say point A, they've always been tough for Barcelona, more so when they're playing in their stadium. And also, Celta Vigo were in good form. They had won their last 4 matches, so we had an opponent that's always tough for Barcelona, playing in their own stadium and coming and arriving at this match in good form. So that was going to be a difficult match, but nonetheless, we were able to take home the victory. And the second reason why this was a very important victory, because today Real Madrid dropped points. They drew against Rayo Vallecano, and as a result, it was very important. It was imperative that Barcelona took home the 3 points in order to reduce that lead from 5 down to 3 points between them and Real Madrid. And that's exactly what has happened. And ladies and gentlemen, Barcelona just lit La Liga on fire, because 3 points between them and Real Madrid with, 26 matches left is definitely a race up for grabs. Now, let's talk about the match itself, because once again, we had a match with 2 different halves. We'll talk about it, but first, let's review the lineup, and then we'll talk about the actual sensations of the match, and finally, we'll end by discussing individual players. Now, let's look at the lineup. This is the lineup that Hansi Flick chose for today's match. Wojciech Szczesny in goal, of course, replacing Joan Garcia, who is healthy, but Flick decided to save him up there after the international break. So hopefully on November 22nd against Athletic Club de Bilbao, we'll see Joan Garcia back in goal. Eric Garcia replacing Jules Koundé. As you know, Jules Koundé did not complete yesterday's training and missed completely the training from the day before, which was at the Camp Nou. So Eric Garcia taking his place. Of course, Eric playing with a fractured nose. He was wearing that Batman mask, or at least he looked like Batman's mask. Ronald Araujo, of course, replacing Eric Garcia as a center back right next to Pau Cubarsí, and then Alejandro Valde on the left back. In the midfield, here we had a last-minute change because there was Marc Casado was supposed to start next to Frankie de Jong in a double pivot. It looks like Marc Casado, I don't know if it's a discomfort or an injury. I'm sure we'll find out. But Marc Casado felt something during the warm-up session. So last-minute change, Casado was subbed with Dani Olmo. So Dani Olmo started the match next to Frankie de Jong and Fermín López in the attacking midfield position. And then our front three was Lamine Yamal, Marcus Rashford, and Robert Lewandowski starting after a very long time, because he hadn't started too many matches this season. Today started, and of course, getting that hat trick. But we'll talk about it in a little bit. Now, let's talk about the general sensations of the match, because today, again, 2 different halves, 2 completely different halves. I mean, we're talking about black and white, yin-yang, right? Because the first half was absolutely chaotic. It was chaos from Barcelona. And nonetheless, we were still able to score 3 goals, but it was very, very concerning to see how chaotic it was. And I think it had to do a lot with 2 reasons. The number one reason was the fact that the midfield was completely absent. It was completely absent. Dani Olmo next to Frankie de Jong was not working. And I think it wasn't working for 2 reasons. The number one reason is that Dani Olmo was once again abysmal. I cannot believe we paid 60 million euros for this guy who's either injured or just completely sucking. But Olmo was absolutely abysmal today. And the second reason, I think, is because he's more of an offensive profile, right? So you have, Fermín is an offensive player, Dani Olmo is an offensive player, and only Frankie de Jong was kind of like in that defensive position in the midfield. So as a result, the first half, our midfield was completely gone. There was no midfield. And that was, of course, a big problem, because the midfield is supposed to act as a barrier, supposed to act as a firewall, right? If you're attacking, you lose the ball and the other team regains possession and they launch a counterattack or they switch to attack. Your midfield is supposed to be there as a firewall. They're supposed to either completely stop the attack of the opposing team, or in the alternative, delay it enough to where your backline can get back into position and can get organized, right? Because we attack with all of our players. Our backline, when we're attacking, they're also attacking. So if the other team switches to the counterattack, your midfield has to be able to either stop the attack or at least slow it down enough to where your backline can get back into position and can, be ready to defend. But since we had no midfield, as soon as Celta Vigo would regain possession, our midfielders were caught with our backline was constantly caught with their pants around their ankles, and they would have to constantly scramble trying to figure out how to get back into position while at the same time defending. So this, of course, created a lot of chaos, created pretty much shambolic defending by Barcelona, which led Celta Vigo to score two goals and then even create chances that could have ended up in goals, but thankfully they did it. Now, this was concerning again, not just because it caused chaos, but because once again, it brought up a point in regards to Frenkie de Jong, which I had said before, that with Frenkie de Jong, what worries me is that I don't see him as the leader in the midfield that can impose order. When Frenkie de Jong is playing next to Pedri and Barcelona are having a good match, Frenkie de Jong will have a great match. But he needs Pedri next to him, kind of like imposing order. He needs Pedri next to him, organizing the attack, distributing the ball, helping with the defense. And when Pedri has that role, that leadership role in the midfield, that role of imposing order, of setting the tempo, Frenkie does great. But if Pedri is not there, either because he's physically not there or he's having a bad day, Frenkie de Jong a lot of times is incapable of taking the baton and saying, okay, I'm going to be the leader in the midfield. I'm going to set order. I'm going to set the tempo. I'm going to organize this. In the first half, that was pretty much it. Frenkie de Jong was incapable of putting order. And as a result, again, our midfield was completely gone. And as a result, we were constantly caught with our pants around our ankles. And Celta Vigo scored 2 goals and caused us a lot of damage. Second half, completely different story. The team went to the locker room. Flick, I don't know what he told these players. I don't know what he did, but he completely reorganized the team. And in the second half, this Barcelona looked completely different from the first half. We saw an organized Barcelona, not just in the back defensively, but also much more organized offensively. And just like I criticized Frenkie, I also have to give him his flowers, because the second half of Frenkie de Jong was absolutely phenomenal. Frenkie de Jong, what he couldn't do in the first half, which is set the tempo, organize the midfield, impose order. He couldn't do that in the first half. He more than did that in the second half. Phenomenal second half by Frenkie de Jong. And by regaining control in the midfield, Celta Vigo were completely diluted. Second half, Celta Vigo didn't even exist offensively, didn't have a single chance. I don't think they even had a single shot on goal. I mean, completely canceled out Celta Vigo thanks to the reorganization that Hansi Flick did in halftime. And it was really good to see that, because we saw that a lot during last season. There was a lot of matches when Barcelona weren't doing too great in the first half. They would go into the locker room. Flick would do some changes, and then the team would look much better in the second half. We hadn't seen that too much during the season. Today, we saw it. Today, I don't know what Flick told them. I don't know what happened in that locker room, but this team was a completely different team than the one we saw during the first half. And as a result, again, not only were we able to score the 4th goal, but we were able to maintain that lead. We were able to dominate the entire second half, and we were able to completely dilute Celta Vigo. And we took this home, this very important victory in these 3 important points. Had Barcelona continued on a trajectory of the first half, I got to tell you, we would have been in trouble. God knows what the final scoreline would have been. It could have been 3-3. Maybe it would have been 4-3 with Celta Vigo winning. I don't know. But thankfully, we were able to regain control of the match. And again, great second half by Frenkie de Jong, putting some order in that midfield. Now, let's talk about players, because there's a lot of players we need to talk about. Wojciech Szczesny. This guy cannot stop anything. I think if you pass him a ball, super slow, just like tap it, he would still concede. Szczesny is just done. He's tapped out. He is done. In his mind, he is retired. I cannot wait for Joan Garcia to come back, because Wojciech Szczesny is just, he has checked out, and this guy just cannot stop anything. Eddie Garcia, not his best match as a right back. However, Eddie Garcia's performance today, better than the entire season that Jules Koundé has had. If you combine all of Koundé's performances and everything that he's done in every single match, Eddie Garcia did more today in just one match than Koundé has done in all his matches combined during this season. And this wasn't even Eddie Garcia's best match as a right back. We've seen better performances from Eddie Garcia in the right back, but this just goes to show how bad Jules Koundé has been during this season. Ronald Araujo, I really like what I saw today. Very decisive, going constantly to intercept passes. Had to wrestle down a few players here and there, obviously legally speaking, not like actually wrestling. I really liked what I saw by Ronald Araujo. Today, Balde, I'm still seeing a disconnect defensively speaking. Offensively, Balde's Balde, we know what he can do, but a lot of times when he tracks back to defend, sometimes he lacks a little bit of focus. I don't know, because the first half was so chaotic where the defense were constantly scrambling, and that's why. But during Celta's first goal, it's actually Balde who completely fails the offside trap. The offside trap was set. Balde is completely disconnected. He's like 2-3 yards behind the rest of the defenders. He puts the Celta Vigo attacker onside. Frankie de Jong, again, bad first half, phenomenal second half. Dani Olmo, just take him out. I mean, I don't know what that guy's doing on the field. I mean, might as well play with 10 men. It's better than playing with Dani Olmo on the field, because today he was absolutely non-existent. Fermin Lopez, much better second half as well. I think Fermin Lopez definitely read the game, or maybe Hansi Flick helped him with this, but he was able to exploit the spaces down the middle of the field, because Celta Vigo were defending with a line of 5 when they would switch to defense. That, of course, left a lot of space in between the right back and the center backs, but more towards the midfield, or I guess more between their right back / right wingers and their defensive midfielder. And Fermin Lopez was definitely able to exploit those two corridors right down the middle around like what would be the defensive midfielder. Lamine Yamal, it looks like, I have a feeling maybe his pubalgia had flared up again today, because his dribbling was not really working. He wasn't trying too much to dribble, and when he did, it wasn't really working too well. And that, of course, has to do with the pubalgia, because pubalgia, what it prevents you from doing is it prevents you from accelerating and de-accelerating. It also prevents you from switching directions fast, and that's two things that you need to dribble, right? You need to be able to explode and then break, and then explode and break, go to the right, go to the left really fast. He wasn't doing too much of that, so I have a sensation that maybe the pubalgia had flared up a little bit today, but nonetheless, he definitely made that up in pressing. Today, Lamine Yamal's pressing was absolutely phenomenal. He won at least 4 or 5 balls right outside of Celta Vigo's penalty box. You know, sometimes we complain that Lamine Yamal doesn't help with the press. Today, his pressing was phenomenal. It's a shame that none of those balls that he stole ended up in goals. Like, most of them were passes, and other players wasted those opportunities. But today, Lamine Yamal said, hey, if I cannot dribble, then I'm going to try to help the team in a different way. And he did that with his pressing. Lamine Yamal, and of course, he got his goal. So really good match for Lamine Yamal, despite not being able to dribble. So for those people who say he's just a one-trick pony that can only dribble and that's it, you're absolutely wrong. Marcus Rashford. Here I see SofaScore gave him a high score because he had 2 assists. I don't know. I'm still on the fence with Rashford. The first part of the first half, he was completely non-existent. The second part of the first half, he finally started trying. He would make runs to the back line. That's how he got his 2 assists. It could have been a 3rd assist hadn't it been deflected by Elias Moriba. And then during the second half, he was kind of diluted again. He did help more with the defense, with the pressing during the second half, but not so much offensively. And I think it has to do with him. I see him very disassociated from the rest of the team. I see like he's still not connected. He's not in the team dynamic yet. There was a play in the first half that really caught my attention where Balde tries to passes the ball to Rashford. Rashford doesn't read it. And then Balde looks at him like, bro, what are you doing? And I feel like Rashford is still not associated with the team. He's not in a team dynamic. So as a result, a lot of times he's just like in his own world. He's just doing his own thing. And he's not really working as a team, not because he doesn't want to, but again, because there's still not, that chemistry has yet to develop, which it's taking a little bit longer than I expected it. But who knows? Maybe once he does develop it, he can, do more. But finally, Lewandowski. Oh, wait, I don't have to do that because Robert Lewandowski, ladies and gentlemen, the guy who's too old, the guy who needs to be sold because he is washed, blah, blah, blah. A hat trick. First time starting in God knows how long, a hat trick. He's already the top scorer of Barcelona again, even though he's played like half the minutes that everyone else. But 3 goals by Robert Lewandowski. And ladies and gentlemen, this is what a pure 9 looks like. Not Ferran Torres, who supposedly thinks that can be the replacement of Lewandowski. This is what a 9 looks like. You give him the ball inside the box, and you have a guaranteed goal. In this case, not just 1, not just 2, but 3 goals. Hat trick by Robert Lewandowski. Lewandowski, who was going to be more in a rotational role this season after he revealed that last season he was exhausted a lot of times because he was playing so many minutes, and being 37 years old, that's not easy. So he was supposed to be more in a rotational role during this season. I think we're going to have to use Lewy more. Now, if we want to still rotate him because he's old, I think he is going to have to start and maybe take him out at the 60th minute. That makes more sense than having Ferran Torres start, because I think today we saw that the difference of quality between Lewandowski and Ferran Torres is miles and miles and miles and miles. Lewandowski is just in a league of his own as far as center forwards come. And when it comes to important matches, we have to have Lewandowski in those important matches. If you want to start Ferran here and there, I think we're going to have to start Ferran against weaker opponents, because the difference is massive. Massive, massive. I hope you guys have seen it by now, because I still had a lot of people tell me, oh, he's washed, he's old, grandpa, blah, 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 blah. Well, shit, if that's actually a compliment, not an insult to call him a grandpa, because if a grandpa can score a hat trick like that, then shit, I want to be a grandpa too. But anyways, that's all I have to say about this match. Frankie de Jong getting 2 yellow cards, which of course becomes a red. I don't see it, the second yellow card. Someone explain it to me. I don't understand. He was fighting with the ball with Iago Aspas. He accidentally steps on him. It wasn't even that bad of a step, but does that merit a yellow? Is it a foul? Yeah, sure, it is a foul, because he stepped on him. But they were fighting for the ball. And honestly, I didn't see a second yellow. And this, of course, is a problem because we have Pedri's injured. Casado today couldn't play. Hopefully, it's nothing serious. And now Frankie de Jong suspended for the next matches against Athletic Club Bilbao. Let's hope that Pedri and Marc Casado are both healthy for that return, for that match against Athletic Club Bilbao, because otherwise, I don't know who's going to play. I mean, I don't think Bernal is in the condition to start and play a full 90 minutes against Athletic Club de Bilbao. If he was, I'll be like, great, I don't even care that Frankie's got to be suspended, let him rest. But no, that's not the case. So I don't know what we're going to do. Now, let's talk about the ref real quick. I don't usually like to talk about the refs, but I have to talk about him today because I did notice something, and that was the disparity in car and bookings. I don't think that the referee, I don't think he had any bad calls. I think he was writing all calls. I'm not here to tell you, oh, this should have been a penalty. This should have been this. I thought he did a good job reffing, but there was a huge disparity in bookings. He was a lot more likely to book a Barcelona player than it was than a Celta Vigo. There was one clear foul on Frankie de Jong where Barcelona are building from the back. Frankie has the ball, and Borja Iglesias is literally holding him from the waist, like holding him to the point. Like first he was slowing him down, and then towards the end, Frankie couldn't even run. And it's not because Frankie stopped, it's because he was literally like, he was running in his place, and Borja is like just holding on to him. And that is a yellow any day of the week. When you hold someone from the back just to prevent them from, continue their progress, that is a yellow any day of the week. That has always been a yellow. No yellow. Christensen gets elbowed in the mouth. He's fucking bleeding. They don't even check it. I mean, we saw that time and time again where the ref was very eager to give Barcelona players a booking, but when it came to Celta Vigo, no books. I mean, look how many yellow cards. We have Rashford yellow, Lewy yellow, Frankie 2 yellows, Covarcia yellow, and then you scroll up here, and I don't see a single yellow. And when you look at the stats, 13 to 10 fouls. Only 3 foul difference. But yet, Barca have 5 yellows and Celta 1. I mean, if you're telling me, oh, Barca had committed 20 fouls and Celta committed 5, you're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense that Barca would have a lot more bookings because they committed a lot more fouls. But that's not the case. 13 to 10 fouls, so only a 3 difference in fouls, and yet 5 times more bookings. I don't understand that. Again, I'm not here to criticize the referee's calls. I thought all his calls were right, but there was definitely a huge disparity in the bookings, and hopefully this doesn't cost us because no Frankie, no Pedri, that's going to be very problematic, and no Casado. Hopefully Pedri and Casado are fully fit for the Athletic Club Bilbao match, or I don't know what we're going to do. But anyways, that's all I have to say. Very, very important victory. 3 very important points. La Liga race is alive and well. For those of you drama queens that were like, oh, this season's over. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? There's like 20-something matches left. It's only a 5-point lead. Now it's only a 3-point lead with 26 matches to go. 26 matches to go. And in fact, let's look at the table. Here we have Real Madrid, 31 points, 10 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. Barca in second, 28 points, 9 wins, 1 draw, 2 losses. And then Villarreal only 2 points behind us. Villarreal definitely breathing down our necks. We also have Atletico Madrid, only 3 points separate us from Atletico Madrid. So this is a very, very tight race up top. But of course, it's still early in La Liga. Anything can happen. Very surprised by this, by the way, today when I was looking at the table. Espanyol in 6th place. Who would have saw that? Athletic Club jumping a few spots. They were in 11th. Now they're in 7th. And then if we scroll all the way down, we have Girona, Levante, and Oviedo in those relegation zones with Valencia right there, man. Valencia, what a mess. What a mess. And y'all want our club to be privately owned? This is what a privately owned club looks like. This guy bought Valencia 5 years ago or something like that and then has never been back to Spain. And the club is just like in total decay. But anyways, that's all I have to say. 2 different halves. Chaotic first one. A much improved second one. And I have to say, we saw the same thing against Elche where we had 2 different halves. But today's half, the good half, was much better than the good half against Elche. Of course, we still have a lot of work to do. But today, during the second half, was definitely a step forward. Barcelona looked more like themselves. It's still nothing like last season's Barca, but definitely looked more like themselves. So hopefully we can continue building on this success. All right, let's do some comments and then we'll end this. But Nikita says, wow, watching some reaction, but saw you and clicked so fast. Enjoy your takes. Well, thank you for joining and thank you for watching. And Zach Herbert says, Lewandowski still scoring hat-tricks at his age is insane. Yes, not just at his age, but at his age in elite football, right? Messi, Penaldo, they were already in retirement leagues. Lewandowski at 37 scoring hat-tricks in La Liga. Not in Saudi, not the MLS, in La Liga. I mean, we're talking about one of the best, if not the best 9s of our generation. Darren says, well played, well. We just need to tighten up our defense line, especially after scoring goals. We keep conceding soon after we score. Aral says, yo, Mo Yamal is finally mastering the arts of putting up stats, even when he's not playing anywhere close to his standards since he's not fully fit. Haters won't have anything to use against him. Yeah, for real. Today, a goal. Really good goal, by the way. And he hit a post. He could have had 2 goals. By the way, we hit the post twice. Lamine Yamal hit it once. Rashford hit it again. So this could have actually been 2-6, which would have been a very surprising result. But nonetheless, we took home victory, and that's the important thing. Darren says, yes, we play well, considering we playing with most of our starters on the injury list. And Night Game says, our attack will slowly get better and better. Once Rafinha returns, our attack will be way more scarier. Rafinha is still better than Rashford. So that actually brings up a good point because, and that's one thing why also the team has been struggling. Because if you think about it, our front 3, Coutinho, Lewandowski, and Lamine, those 3 had like 100 goals, I think, between all 3 of them last season. And all 3 of them have been injured this season. Rafinha's been out for, I think, a month now. Lewandowski has been out a lot of times. Lamine has missed so many matches. And that's the problem, right? And that, of course, has highlighted more the goals that we concede. Because people forget, we were conceding just as many goals last season. But what was the difference? Is that we were scoring more. So it didn't really matter, right? This season, we were conceding just as many, but we weren't scoring more than the opponent because we were lacking all of our firepower up front. So that's another thing to take into mind because whenever there's a problem with a team performing, it's usually multifaceted. But people being as simplistic as, well, it's actually more like people being lazy. So they don't want to think about all the different reasons on why the problem could exist. You know, of course, they choose the easy route. Highline, highline, highline. Because, of course, it's a lot easier to just scream highline rather than actually try to dissect the problem. And problems are always, always multifaceted. It's never just one thing. It's multiple things. And one of the things why we've seen our performance being impacted is also the fact that our front three have been injured. So with no firepower, we're still conceding the same as last season. The only difference, we're not scoring like last season. And as we know, Barca DNA, it's about scoring more than your opponent. So if they score 4, you score 5, it doesn't matter. You won. But if they score 4 and you only score 2 because your whole firepower, your whole front three are injured, well, then it does matter. And all of a sudden people, we're conceding goals. Where have you been, bro? We've been conceding goals. Like, did you just realize this? See how many goals we conceded last season? Or were you watching a different season? Nicholas says, Mo, things might be looking up for us returning back to the Camp Nou and 3 points behind VAR Madrid. Love from Trinidad. Yes, hopefully the team can build on this. And, hopefully with the FIFA international break, they can get, they can reset and back at the Camp Nou and all that can come together and help us. Zach Iron says, one thing I noticed about Pedri at Barca, he plays with pride and passion, almost like he graduated La Masia. Yeah, you ain't kidding, my friend. You ain't kidding. And Carlos says, our opinion on Olmo is opposite. Accept your opinion, Mo. I thought he played well, not amazing, but better than before. I don't know, man. I didn't see it. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I wasn't impressed whatsoever. Vicenta says, if we end up keeping Rashford, then it would be on super sub basis because he's not a Barca starter, not just yet. Definitely not. But I'm definitely curious to see what's going to happen when Coutinho comes back, right? Because so far, Coutinho's been injured for so long. There hasn't been any competition there. It's just been Rashford, and that's it. I want to see what happens when Coutinho comes back. I mean, obviously, I think Coutinho will start ahead of Rashford any day of the week. But I want to see if that kind of lights a fire under Rashford and motivates him to do better, because I know Coutinho's going to bench him. I think that's a no-brainer, right? Let's see. Vincent says that foul on FDJ, where he was held from the back by Borja Iglesias, should have been a yellow. Pedri was shown yellow when he did the same. Well, it's always a yellow. It's always a yellow. But this time the ref, I guess, forgot. I guess he had 2 sets of yellows. One for Barca players, one for Celta players. The ones that were designated for Celta players, he left them at home. And he only brought to the match the yellow cards designated for Barca players. And Barca Reloaded says, Olmo performed decent today. His only mistake was not pressing Iglesias for the second goal we conceded. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we will end this live. Thank you so much for tuning in. I did do the post-match live analysis. The watch-along today. I've been having more and more fun with the watch-alongs. Hopefully more can join in the future. But thank you guys for watching this post-match live analysis. I will see you guys later. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, and as always, Visca Barça.